Within hours of the final whistle, one word was trending across 3 continents. Rigged. Not unlucky, not controversial. Rigged. A team from Africa had the defending world champions on the ropes. 2 goals up with 11 minutes to play, 1 foot in the quarterfinals, and then, in the space of 13 minutes, everything they had built was torn apart. 3 goals, 1 stoppage time dagger, and a video review decision so strange that even neutral commentators, men paid to stay calm, were openly asking on live television whether the technology had just been weaponized against the underdog. By full time, millions of fans were convinced they had watched something that was never allowed to end any other way. But were they right? In this video, we break down every disputed moment from Argentina versus Egypt at the 2026 World Cup. The penalty, the goal that was wiped off the board from 100 yards away, the appeal that never got checked, the viral statistic that set social media on fire. We will look at what the accusers claim, what the defenders answer, and what the evidence actually shows. Because the truth behind this match is messier and far more uncomfortable than either side wants to admit. And by the end, you will understand why one decision in the 55th minute in Atlanta may change how this sport is officiated forever. But first, you need to understand what was at stake. Because that is the only way any of this makes sense. July 7th, 2026, Atlanta Stadium, the round of 16. On one side stood Argentina, the reigning world champions carrying Lionel Messi through what everyone understood to be his final World Cup, the most marketable team in the tournament. The face of the sport chasing one last miracle at 39 years old, leading the tournament in goals, with a global audience hanging on his every touch. On the other side stood Egypt, ranked 29th in the world when the tournament began, a team almost nobody gave a chance. They had already survived a penalty shootout against Australia in the previous round, a game where Mohamed Salah, nursing a hamstring problem all tournament, calmly chipped a Panenka down the middle of the goal to help send his country through. Egypt had fought for every single inch of their World Cup. Nothing had been given to them. And that contrast matters, because when a global superpower meets a team of overachievers, and every major decision seems to bounce one way, people start asking questions. Questions about money, questions about television audiences, questions about whether the sport's governing body could really afford to lose its biggest star in the round of 16. Understand the commercial reality here. Messi at a World Cup is not just a player. He is the tournament's biggest advertisement. Every extra match he plays means hundreds of millions of additional viewers, packed stadiums, and sponsorship value no other athlete on the planet can generate. Nobody needs a secret meeting to understand which outcome is better for business. And that is exactly why every marginal call in a Messi match gets examined under a microscope that no other team ever faces. Those questions started early, 15 minutes in to be exact. Egypt scored first. A delivery from Marwan Adia found the head of center-back Yasser Ibrahim, who powered it home to stun the stadium. 1-0 to the underdogs. It was the first time Argentina had trailed in a World Cup match since their infamous defeat to Saudi Arabia in the opening game of 2022. The champions were rattled. Cairo erupted. And then, just 5 minutes later, came the first flashpoint. Argentina fullback Nicolas Tagliafico went down inside the Egyptian penalty area under a challenge from forward Haissem Hassan. The referee pointed to the spot. Egyptian players surrounded him in disbelief. To many watching, the contact looked soft. Soft enough that fans online immediately reached for a statistic that had been following Argentina around for 4 years. Since the start of the 2022 tournament, Argentina had been awarded 8 penalties across just 12 World Cup matches, 8 penalties in 12 games. For critics of the champions, that number is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. Here is the problem with the conspiracy, though. If this match was scripted for Argentina, somebody forgot to tell the Egyptian goalkeeper. Because Messi stepped up, struck his penalty toward the right side, and Mostafa Shoubir threw himself across goal and pushed it away. The greatest player of his generation had just missed from 12 yards, and it was not a one-off. It made Messi the first player in the entire history of the World Cup to fail from the penalty spot twice in a single tournament. Former Scotland striker Ali McCoist said on television that Messi did not look confident, that for the first time in his life he was watching one of the greatest players on earth and was not sure the man believed in himself. Shoubir was not finished. Before half-time, he denied Alexis McAllister. He denied Julián Álvarez. The kid in the Egyptian goal was single-handedly holding back the champions of the world, and his country dared to dream. Then, 10 minutes into the second half, came the moment this entire video is about. The moment that turned a football match into an international argument. Egypt broke. Hissam Hassan produced a dazzling, zigzagging run down the right wing and slipped the ball to Mohamed Salah. Salah, with the vision that made him a legend, threaded Mostafa Zico in behind the Argentine defense. Zico stayed calm and finished coolly past Emiliano Martínez from the left edge of the box. 2-0. A breakaway goal of stunning quality. The Egyptian bench emptied. Half of Africa was on its feet. And then the referee put his finger to his ear. The video assistant referee had flagged something, not in the Argentine box, not in the build-up around the edge of the area, all the way back at the other end of the pitch, in Argentina's attacking third, roughly 100 yards from where the ball had crossed the line. Moments before Egypt won possession and launched their counter, midfielder Marwan Atia had tangled with Argentine defender Lisandro Martinez. The replays showed Atia tugging Martinez's shirt while stepping on his foot. French referee François Letexier walked to the pitch side monitor. He watched the replays, and he wiped the goal off the board. There was genuine confusion inside the stadium. Nobody understood what had just happened. It was only when the giant halo scoreboard quietly changed the number under the Egyptian flag from 2 back to 1 that Argentina fans began celebrating as if they had scored themselves. Salah pleaded with the official. The Egyptian players were beside themselves. A goal born from 80 yards of majestic, precise football had been erased because of a shirt tug near the opposite corner flag. The reaction from the broadcast booths was instant, and it was brutal. Former England goalkeeper Rob Green, working as an analyst on the World Feed, could not believe what he was seeing. He argued that this could not possibly fall within the remit of video review, that the incident was a full length of the pitch away from the goal, that someone stepping on someone's toe 100 yards from the action was not why the technology was brought into the game. He said the review system had reached far beyond the powers it was ever supposed to have. In his view, the referee had seen the tackle live, decided it was not a foul, and Egypt had been denied a 2-goal cushion for a brilliant breakaway goal. Writing in The Athletic, refereeing analyst Graham Scott went even further, describing the decision as an astonishing intervention and a massive overreach of a system designed only to correct clear and obvious errors. Veteran football writer Henry Winter captured the absurdity of it with a joke that went around the world. He wrote that if the review had gone any further back in that Egyptian move, Tutankhamun would have been involved. He acknowledged it was probably the right decision by the letter of the law, but mourned what he called one of the goals of the tournament: 80 yards of majestic movement and precise passing, gone. On BBC Radio, former England goalkeeper Paul Robinson summed up the Egyptian fury, pointing out that the infringement was almost on Egypt's own touchline. And an Egyptian football expert on the same station relayed the mood back home. Huge disappointment, total confusion about how far back a review is allowed to reach. And one question above all others: if the exact same foul had happened in the build-up to a goal by Messi, would anybody have gone looking for it? That question is the beating heart of the rigging theory. Not that officials sat in a room and planned the outcome, but that when the decisions are 50-50, the biggest star in the sport always seems to land on the right side of the coin. Now, to their eternal credit, Egypt did not collapse. 12 minutes after his goal was taken away, Mostafa Zico did it again. More fine work from Hassan on the right wing, and this time the finish counted. 2-0. For real this time. The Pharaohs were 11 minutes plus stoppage time away from one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history, and that is precisely when the champions woke up. In the 79th minute, Messi swung in a cross and Cristian Romero rose to head it home, 2-1. 4 minutes later, Messi himself arrived at the edge of the box and rifled a first-time strike into the net. His 8th goal of the tournament, more than any other player. 2-2. Atlanta was shaking. Egypt was hanging on by its fingernails. Then, deep in stoppage time, came the sequence that turned suspicion into rage. Mohamed Salah went down in or around the Argentine penalty area, convinced he had won a penalty that would give Egypt the chance to steal the game back. The referee waved play on, no whistle. And critically, according to the frame-by-frame breakdowns that flooded social media afterward, no video review of the incident or of 2 other contested moments Egyptian fans identified in the build-up. Argentina stormed down the other end with the ball. And in the 92nd minute, Enzo Fernández rose at the far post and headed the winner into the corner. 3-2. Game over. Egypt eliminated. Argentina into the quarterfinals. Think about the whiplash of that sequence from an Egyptian perspective. When Egypt scored, officials went back 100 yards through the move to find a reason to erase it. When Argentina scored the winner, the appeals at the start of the very same passage of play were never examined at all. Same match, same technology, same referee. 2 completely different standards of scrutiny, and both of them happened to favor the team wearing blue and white. Within minutes, social media detonated. Fans posted that the tournament was rigged, that this was corruption on open display, that Egypt had been robbed. One viral post declared flatly that the World Cup was rigged for Messi. And then came the statistic that poured gasoline on everything. A widely shared post claimed that across the tournament, video officials had reviewed 12 goals for fouls in the build-up and ruled out all 12, while 3 goals scored after alleged fouls in the build-up were never reviewed at all. And every single one of those 3 unreviewed goals, the post claimed, belonged to Argentina. Now, that claim came from a fan account, not from an official audit, and it deserves real skepticism. Numbers like that are easy to assemble selectively and almost impossible for the average fan to verify. But it spread for a reason. It spread because it fit a pattern people believed they were already seeing with their own eyes, week after week. Earlier in the tournament, according to ESPN's own officiating expert, Messi had raked his studs down the calf and ankle of Algeria's captain in a challenge the expert described as a red card offense. The referee gave only a foul, the video officials declined to intervene, and Messi stayed on the pitch, free to play the rest of the tournament. Against Austria, opponents fumed over a possible foul by Mac Allister in the build-up to a Messi goal. The goal stood without an on-field review. Add the 8 penalties in 12 matches since 2022, and for millions of fans, the Egypt match was not an isolated incident. It was the loudest note in a song they had been hearing for 4 years. So that is the case for the prosecution. It is emotional. It is compelling. And parts of it are genuinely troubling. But now, let us do what an honest documentary has to do. Let us put the theory on trial. Start with the disallowed goal itself, because everything hangs on it. ESPN's officiating expert reviewed the incident and reached the opposite conclusion from the television pundits. His verdict was that the intervention was correct and that disallowing the goal was the right outcome. The reasoning goes like this. Atia's foul on Lisandro Martinez was clear. It happened while Argentina were in an attacking position, and it directly created the turnover that launched Egypt's counter. Under the laws as written, a foul in the same phase of play that leads directly to a goal must wipe that goal out, no matter how far from goal it occurs. Once the referee saw the replays showing a simultaneous shirt hold and a stamp on the foot, there was no realistic chance he would stand by his original call. Harsh, yes. Heartbreaking, absolutely. But by the letter of the law, defensible. Even Henry Winter, while mourning the goal, conceded it was probably the right decision. Then there is the inconvenient scoreboard problem. The disallowed goal did not actually cost Egypt the lead. Zico scored again 12 minutes later. With 11 minutes plus stoppage time remaining, Egypt led 2-0, exactly the advantage the conspiracy says they were robbed of. From that position, they conceded 3 times. No referee headed Romero's goal into the net. No video official struck Messi's equalizer. No governing body rose at the far post to meet the cross for Fernandez's winner. Egypt's collapse in the final 11 minutes was a football failure, not an administrative one. And if the fix was in, it was the strangest fix ever arranged. A scripted match does not usually feature the protected superstar missing a penalty and becoming the first player in World Cup history to fail twice from the spot in one tournament. It does not feature the underdog goalkeeper making save after save without a single call rescuing the favorites. The raw numbers tell the same story. Argentina generated an expected goals figure of roughly 2.8 against Egypt's 0.98 and fired 19 shots to Egypt's 5. Over 90 minutes, the champions created nearly 3 goals of quality chances and were denied for 80 of those minutes by one inspired goalkeeper. That is not a rigged beneficiary. That is a dominant team that eventually broke through. So where does that leave us? Here is the uncomfortable middle ground. There is no evidence that this match was fixed. No paper trail, no whistleblower, no smoking gun. What there is, instead, is something arguably more corrosive. A review system so inconsistent that even honest decisions look dirty. Because the real scandal of Atlanta is not that officials broke the rules. It is that nobody, not the players, not the pundits, not the fans, not even the former professionals paid to explain the game, can tell you where the rules begin and end. How far back can a review reach? 1 phase? 100 yards? Why did Zico's goal get the forensic treatment while the build-up to Fernandez's winner did not? The system offers no clear answer. And when a sport's disciplinary technology behaves unpredictably, human beings will fill the vacuum with the most dramatic explanation available. The tournament's organizers have a commercial interest in their biggest star advancing. Everyone knows it. And every ambiguous decision gets filtered through that knowledge. That is the lesson of Argentina versus Egypt. Not proof of a conspiracy, but proof of how cheaply trust can be spent. Consider what Egypt takes home from this tournament. A shootout victory over Australia. A goalkeeper who announced himself to the world by denying the greatest player alive from 12 yards. 80 minutes of belief against the champions. Even one of the tournament's own analysts said afterward that Egypt had made all of Africa proud despite the defeat. They played the match of their lives, and they went home with a grievance that will burn for a generation. Argentina survived, kept the Messi fairy tale alive, and marched on toward a quarterfinal against Switzerland or Colombia. And somewhere between those two truths sits a review room in Atlanta, whose decisions will be argued about for as long as this sport is played. Was it rigged? The evidence says no. Was it fair? That is a much harder question. A goal of the tournament erased from 100 yards away. A stoppage time appeal that never got a second look. A superstar who keeps landing on the right side of every coin flip, except the ones taken from 12 yards. The laws were probably followed. The game still felt broken. And maybe that is the most damning verdict of all, because a sport can survive a bad decision. It cannot survive its fans believing the outcome was never in doubt. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into football's biggest stories. Until next time.